G'day, I'm Paul. Look, if you're in the market for an EV luxury barge, as I like to call them, there are sort of not really all that many options here in Australia, but this is about to go on sale. It is the Genesis Electrified G80. So it's basically an electric version of their G80 limousine. This competes with things like the Tesla Model S, the Mercedes-Benz EQE, and to some extent the Porsche Taycan as well. Today we're going to do a quick review of this. So this is a pre-production car, so we're only getting a short time to drive it at a private facility, but I want to give you a little bit of an inside before it does arrive in Australia later this year. This is going to be priced at around that $150,000 mark in one specification. If you do want to skip ahead to other parts of this quick review, you can use the time codes on the screen, or if you're on YouTube, you can scroll down and use the chapters below. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so you can find out whenever we drive these pre-production cars. Let's talk about design now. Before I do jump into that, I just want to reiterate this is a pre-production car. So some of the bits and pieces you see on here won't be on the final car, but it's close enough. So you've got 8 external colors to pick from, 1 unique color just for the electric vehicle, which is this one here, and then 2 matte colors as well. Then on the design front, it kind of looks just the same as a G80, and that's with the exception of the roof and this part up the front. So up the front here, they've kind of closed off the grille that would typically cool an internal combustion engine. So that's all closed over. You still have these little gaps here, but they're not really sort of air gaps. And then you have a charger hidden behind this port as well. All of the battery cooling is down here, so that sort of feeds in and cools the battery system and the motors as required. Outside of that, it just looks fairly normal. So Genesis badge up the top here. Over here, you have a set of matrix LED headlights, LED daytime running lights, LED indicators. It really is a fully featured setup. With the G80, you can see this twin set of lines follows all the way down the side of the car. It's kind of a theme they have across all of their products. Come around to the side. Down here, you've got a set of 19-inch alloy wheels. Love this design, although I think it would be very painful to clean. That is a lot of spokes in there. This sits on a 45 profile tyre, so this should actually ride nicely out on the road. This car actually uses a camera system that interacts with the adaptive dampers to smooth out the ride based on what's coming up. So I'm keen to see whether that actually works. There are those side stripe things that I spoke about. They also act as an indicator too. I think this is a really elegant design. This car just stands out so much out on the road. I think it looks sensational. Now up here you have your wing mirror that is body colored, bit of piano black down the bottom with a camera built into there, chrome garnish here on the side. Now have a look up the top here. Normally you would see a panoramic glass roof, but these are actually solar panels. So one there and one there, they take up that entire roof space. Now don't go thinking that this will give you enough charge to fill the battery in the car. This will only give you around 800 watt hours per day, so barely anything, but it is enough if you run auxiliary cooling systems or just need to use any of the car's functions, because you would be chewing through the car's actual battery if you didn't use these. So clever use of roof space. The only thing that concerns me about these is hail damage. This looks like it would be very expensive to replace. Come around to the back of the car. How is this rear end? I think it looks sensational. So more of that twin stripe design there with a full LED set of taillights. Reflectors down the bottom, and because of course this is a full EV, no exhaust pipes, but they have integrated that lower bar there quite nicely. So it looks like it suits the car. It doesn't look like it's just been a retrofit of the internal combustion model. A little bit of chrome along the top there, Genesis and G80. You'll notice there are no EV badges on this. So if you are driving this, no one's really going to know that it's an EV, which I guess is a good thing. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. If you bought an EV, do you want everyone to know that it's an EV? Or do you just want to get along and enjoy your EV motoring all on your own? And let me know what you think about the design as well. Do you like this as much as I do? Let me know in the comments section below. So we're inside the electrified G80. We'll start with the key. You've got lock, unlock, boot. You've got the remote function for moving, the remote start function. On the back there, you've got Genesis. Once you're inside, you have a push button start just here. Now, I've got to say, this is one of the best looking luxury car interiors I've seen. They haven't gone to town on 10 million screens here. Everything is functional, and just the materials and the fit and finish is excellent. So you've got this soft touch stuff along the dashboard there, exposed stitching here, and I love this sort of quasi wood grain material they've used throughout the cabin. This all just screams luxury to me. I'm really, really impressed with it. In terms of your touch points and build quality and stuff, I won't talk about that today because this is a pre-production car. Let's move on to infotainment. Now, this is another pretty impressive setup in this space, simply because they haven't had to go down the path of these ginormous screens to achieve what you need to achieve. So this is a 14.5-inch display. It's ultra wide screen, high resolution, and you can see here that in addition to inbuilt satellite navigation, they have touchscreen available, and then you can also use this controller down here to manage everything. I have mentioned previously in Genesis reviews that I sometimes get these two confused while I'm driving. I'm sure you get used to that if you own the car, but just something worth keeping in mind. The only real difference is the EV menu. So in the EV menu, you can see how much range you have, how much battery is available, and where your nearest chargers are. Sound system, this uses a 21 speaker Lexicon branded sound system. It's a great sound system, AM, FM, DAB plus digital radio. On smartphone mirroring, you have both Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. They are both wired systems, no wireless available here, unfortunately. But outside of that, this infotainment system is virtually the same as what you find in the standard G80. Head of the driver though, you have the luxury level display, which includes 3D. I'm not a huge fan of this because to me, when I look at it, it looks a little bit blurry, and I prefer when I'm driving a Genesis to just switch all that stuff off and have a standard display. But horses for courses, I guess, and I'll run you through how this is different to a standard car when we go for a drive. Let's talk about safety tech. So you have autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection. It's got a junction assistant, evasive steering assistant. You have a lane departure warning and a lane keeping assistant, plus a semi-autonomous steering function. You do have blind spot monitoring built into the wing mirrors, but while you're driving and you use your indicator, the camera actually comes up on the side here as well, and I'll demo that when we do go for a drive. On the parking front, you have rear cross traffic alert, front and rear parking sensors, and a 360 camera. Show you what that looks like. There it is. So the quality of that is not too bad. There's a bit of sun on that at the moment, but if I jump to one of these other views, it just gives you an idea of what it looks like. Yeah, look, the quality is okay. It could be a tiny bit better, I reckon, but you do have this 3D function to keep you busy as well if you want. Moving on to practicality, and we'll start off with your charging. Where are you going to charge your phone? So behind this nook here, you've got two USB-A chargers and a Qi wireless phone charger. You have a 12-volt charger here in the center console. What about the rest of your storage? Well, you can pop your drinks in here. There's teeth in there to hold them in place. Adequate storage inside the door bins as well. This center console, it's pretty generous too. You can kind of creep under there a little bit. You've got a glove box here as well that is plenty spacious, and finally a sunglasses holder up the top. And then for comfort, you have dual zone automatic climate control, heating and cooling here for the front row, heated steering wheel. I like these seats because not only do they have a multitude of electric adjustment, they also have air pockets inside them that allow you to run a massage function. So while you are going on a long distance quiet drive, you can have the air pockets basically massaging your body while you move along. The seats themselves are pretty cool. So Napa leather, you've got perforations for that cooling setup. They hug you in nicely with these adjustable electric side bolsters, and they're just very comfortable for a long distance drive. And then on the steering front, you have electric steering adjustment that gives you tilt and reach ability. And on our reach test, all of this stuff is easy to reach while you're driving, but you really have to stretch up here if you want to use touchscreen functions on your infotainment system. So we're in the second row. Soft closed doors. What's our room like? So knee room is excellent. I've got this seat pretty far back. Toe room is terrible though. Often with these EVs, just because of the batteries in the floor, they kind of rob you of space. And you can see here my knees are sitting really high up. Headroom is okay as well. I would have liked maybe just a little bit more there. But outside of that, it does feel like a spacious place to be seated. This is where you'll find your additional air conditioning zone. You've got air vents there, map pockets over here, entertainment screens for your second row. These are touch screens, so they work really well. It's kind of a mimic of what you see on the screen there ahead of the driver. You can adjust your ambient lighting and have a look at the camera view and all that sort of stuff, so that's pretty cool. Center armrest, have a look at this. You've got even more control, so you can then control your screens using this if you want. You can lower the shade at the back there using this. Seat heating for your two outboard seats. Love that little setup. In here you've got a storage bin with a USB outlet and then also two headphone jacks. ISO fixed points for your two outboard seats, plus 3 top tether points. There is a seat here, but probably wouldn't want to be the one sitting in the center section there. Over on the passenger side, you can move that seat forwards and backwards from the rear. Then you've also got some additional privacy here, should it be required. I'd love it if this would be electric, just like the back one as well. And finally, our window test. Does it go all the way down? Almost. I do love that though. Look at it, how it slows down as it tucks back in. Very luxury. Let's talk cargo space. I've got some bad news, and that is You're not going to have as much boot room as you do in the internal combustion version. So there's under 400 litres available, and it kind of has this awkward hump over here where there's components for the electric system. So yeah, a little bit disappointed with that, but for the most part, it's not too bad. You've got storage off to the sides. Beneath the cargo floor, you have storage for the cable, the V2L plug, and all that sort of thing. But yeah, I don't know, wish they could just make that a flat floor. In terms of what it looks like with our bags in, here is our Pelican going in, flying into that space. You can see that sort of fits in okay. That's about the size of a carry-on suitcase for the plane. And I think you'd be able to fit some golf clubs in sideways because it is a pretty big boot aperture, but just not quite the depth that you need. And in addition to that, you can't fold the second row to give you more room either. So it is a little bit of a compromised space. Before we go for a spin, let's talk about charging. So your charging infrastructure is located behind this little doodad here. I have mentioned previously that I love the fact that this is at the front of the car and not at the side. I prefer it either at the front or the back instead of just being at the side, because then you have to drape your charging cables over the car, you damage your new paintwork, all that sort of stuff. Now you have both AC and DC charging here. On the AC front, you can charge up to 3-phase 11 kilowatts, which is pretty impressive. And then on the DC front, this is one of the segment leading charging options, because it'll do 800 volts and up to 350 kilowatts. And we have seen previously with this Hyundai technology, they can charge up to around that 250 kilowatt mark pretty comfortably. Over here, you have a battery charge indicator. And in addition to that, this also has vehicle to load ability. So using this plug just here, you can pump out 3.6 kilowatts out of this plug. So you're basically using your vehicle's electricity to power something else, whether you be out camping or perhaps you're at a conference and you need to power the PowerPoint presentation or something. So yeah, on the charging front, this is a pretty decent setup. So we've just hit the road in the electrified G80. Gee, this is nice. It actually feels fantastic just sort of cruising along here in absolute silence. I'm actually a fan of the G80 in general, but it's just a weird feeling being in here when it is electrified. So this uses a twin motor setup. They've taken out all of the internal combustion components and instead replaced them with an electric motor on the front axle and an electric motor on the rear axle. They produce a combined 272 kilowatts of power, and they're both 136 kilowatts apiece on the front and rear axle. And that provides you with 700 Newton meters of torque. So it is a fairly hefty amount of torque to play with. Now, I know the question you're asking, will it do all the electric fun stuff? Let's pin it back. Yeah, it does. It's not sort of face-melting acceleration, but it is a really nice progressive push in the back. I think what they've tried to do with this is given it a luxury feel in all elements, including the way that it accelerates. So instead of just, belting you in the back like a, rugby runner coming up and hitting you, that's what they do on the rugby field. This sort of just gently pushes you. It's like a chess player coming up and picking a fight with you. It's just a much more steady variation of that. And I think it works really well in their chassis because it's not making itself out to be a sports car. This is very much being pinned as a luxury silent cruiser. Now, big battery, that means big range. Genesis is quoting around 500 kilometres. The exact number's still yet to be confirmed for the Australian market, but that kind of figure's pretty healthy and it's what you expect for a vehicle this size. And then when you look at the charging capacity and how quickly you can fill that battery, it's actually a really good sort of mixture of range and also charging ability. So they've ticked all the right boxes there in terms of this being a touring EV. I will also call out as well, just on efficiency. I'm not really talking about it here just because this car has only been driven at the track, so the number's not really going to be all that realistic. Let's talk about regen modes. So using your paddle shifters, you can whip through a number of regen modes, all the way from off, which is just coasting, level 1, 2, 3, and then I-pedal. Now, I-pedal is kind of like a Tesla or a Nissan in terms of the way that it comes to a complete stop. It's one pedal driving. This does it a little differently though. In the Tesla, it actuates the brake pedal. So when you do come to a stop, it holds the car entirely. Here in the Genesis though, it will come to a stop, but it's sort of, you can feel it sort of moving back and forward a little bit as it rocks its way to a silent finish. So it's a little bit different, and not sure I'm a massive fan of the way that feels. I prefer them to just actuate the brake and come to a complete stop, but I guess this is a mixture of both worlds. Now, ahead of the driver, it's going to look a little different to a regular G80, and that's because you have all of your EV components. On the right-hand side, when I roll out of the throttle, you can see we go deep into that charge zone, and then when I apply throttle, it then goes into the power zone. So that is very much focused on the way that you are delivering torque to the wheels. Then on the left-hand side, we have our battery capacity, and that is simply low to high, gives you an indication of how much battery you have left. You also have battery range as well in addition to that. Now, in terms of your drive modes, you've got a little button here. You can switch between comfort, sport, and eco. They all adjust the way that the car rides out on the road, the way the steering feels. And also in eco mode, it will actually dull the air conditioning a little bit to preserve your battery while you're driving along. Now, sport mode, let's see what this feels like. All right, that is ready for some action. It pins you right back in the seat. It actually sits really nice and flat when you're stuck into the throttle there. Far out, it is absolutely moving. Wow, you can just hear the tyres squealing there a little bit. Pin that out of the corner. Yeah, damn, that is good. I wasn't expecting a car this size to hoof along the way that it is. That is impressive. So I did notice a couple of times when you come flying out of a corner and get onto the throttle, it's a little reluctant to give you full throttle. I can see the traction control light flashing. I think if you were to switch that off, it would probably sort of aid in that, but far out. This is absolutely moving. Wow, that is impressive. I was not expecting that from a big sort of EV like this. How does it compare to something like a fast Tesla? Look, the Tesla's different. The Tesla gives you that immediate punch in the back. It genuinely feels like it has almost unlimited amounts of power. This, on the other hand, is, I think, just a little bit more engaging. You feel like you can play with it a little bit. A Tesla is very much knife's edge stuff. This is on that sort of playful level. I think with the Tesla, they do everything they can to make sure it sticks to the road, whereas this, they give you just that little bit of fun around the edges, and I think that that's a far better tune and makes you more enjoyed as a driver to give it a crack in. Now, we don't have an official 0 to 100 time from Genesis for the electrified G80, but this is how it went up against our stopwatch. And in terms of the ride, this is exactly what a luxury cruiser needs to feel like, despite the fact it is sitting on pretty big, low-profile wheels. It uses a camera that sits up here to look at the road ahead, and then it changes the suspension damping as it goes. So it is a very advanced adaptive damping setup, and that's pretty much what you want from this. It kind of feels very much like an S-Class more than it does a Tesla Model S, for example. And that follows through to the silence as well. Genesis cars are generally pretty well padded and very silent inside the cabin. This, on the other hand, really takes that to another level, and it ensures that you don't hear a thing while you're driving. You can just cruise along nice and gently, and you really don't pick up any noise on the road. It is just a great place to be seated, especially for a long distance drive. What about your visibility? Now, this is a big vehicle, I'm not going to lie about that. So you can see clearly down the front there, that's not a problem. Visibility out the wing mirrors is good. It's quite a decent sized wing mirror. You have blind spot monitoring there, but also when you hit the indicator, this turns into a camera too. Visibility out the rear is great as well. It's a big envelope, so it means you get excellent visibility regardless of what you're doing. At low speeds as well, you have that camera front and rear parking sensor, so it is pretty easy to place this when you do need to. So the electrified G80, I'll tell you what, I was pretty surprised by this. I wasn't expecting it to be as fun as it is to drive, but also if those range figures end up being sort of accurate when it is launched, this will be like a really good Grand Tourer, and at 150 grand, it's actually really good value for money when you have a look at everything else in this segment. On the performance front, it's more than adequate. It's sort of really smile-inducing stuff, and it handles nicely for a big sedan as well, with all the luxury features you'd expect. So let's see how it goes. I'm quietly hopeful that this will do well in Australia. Now, it is going to be launched in Australia later this year. We will hopefully then be able to drive it properly on one of our circuits as well to see what it's really like. But in the meantime, let me know in the comments section below, what do you think of the electrified G80? Do you think that Genesis has done a good job with this? Is there anything you'd change? Would you get solar panels on your roof like this has? Let me know in the comments section. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure you like it and share it with your mates. And if you haven't done so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon. But until next time, drive safely.